The people in the planes that died, how did they die? Were they in the plane? The phone calls from the planes, there were people that did, civilians that passed away in this tragedy, right? They were in the planes or not.
Well, it's a question of where they passed away. You see.
Are you saying those planes were subbed out and they were killed?
Just remember Operation Northwoods. They were going to land the planes at an airfield. Not sure they would want people on those planes to survive and tell the story. And there were war games going on, right? And in war games, they have actors playing parts in the war games. When I mentioned earlier about the National Reconnaissance Office and the scenario of a plane hitting that building in the war game scenario in Washington, they had smoke, bombs. People at the Reconnaissance Office had scripts to keep to. People at the Reconnaissance Office were given phone calls to make it seem like it was a real scenario. There is a very good chance, I'm not saying this is what happened, but there's a very good chance that these war games and those planes were in some way connected. But those planes were landed, and other planes took over. And because of the sim over live, very easy to lose the plane, especially when the transponders are turned off, which gives a detail of where the plane is and all that height, everything. But in terms of that whole scenario with the phone calls, I go into that.
And Flight 93 was the fourth one that crashed in the field,
one, yeah,
right?
In Pennsylvania. But first of all, at least some of those phone calls couldn't have happened. And if some of them didn't happen, the question is, did any of them happen? And when I say didn't happen, maybe we're not the people involved, or maybe there's some other explanation. Let me explain what I mean. Barbara Olson was a CNN contributor in Vision, and she was the wife of Ted Olson, the Bush administration Solicitor General, who was in the Justice Department that morning. And the official story is that Barbara Olson called her husband at the Justice Department twice, and they had a conversation. Well, no one's ever produced the records of those calls, and the evidence is that they don't have it because it didn't take place. The story that Olson tells kept changing from she rang on an airphone, which were in the back seats and used to pick them. I used one once around the same time, funnily enough. And you could call from the air through these airphones. And the other thing was cell phones. So Olson's gone between, she called on an airphone, she called on a cell phone, right? Two things. At the height she was, according to the flight data recorder that was released to pilots for 9/11 Truth by the authorities, she could never possibly have made a cell phone call from the height that plane was at. So, must have been an airphone. According to American Airlines, that's what Flight 77 was, the airphones were taken out or dismantled by the time of 9/11 on 757s of American Airlines. That's in their own manual saying that. I've quoted from their manuals. Pilots and cabin staff have said the same. Oh no, there were no airphones on 757s at that time on American Airlines. We're on United Airlines, not on American Airlines. Then you have a story of a passenger on Flight 93 calling his wife, a man called Tom Burnett. And his wife said that when the call came, his cell phone came up, right? So he's calling on a cell phone. And they had a conversation. And one of the things, as I explain in the book, that is a constant theme of these phone calls is people at the other end saying it was just incredible how calm they were. And I never heard any panic, any shouting. Often I didn't really hear a plane. It was silent at the other end. Anyway, the FBI was saying that these cell phone calls were made from these planes, right? And then someone, didn't take a lot of now, mainstream media didn't mention it, mind. Sorry, I repeat myself. They pointed out you certainly couldn't then, make cell phone calls from the altitudes they were talking about. Absolutely impossible. So suddenly the FBI story started to change and they became airphones instead of cell phones. And Burnett's calls to his wife, when his cell phone comes up, suddenly became an airphone. It wasn't. And another guy called, and by the way, at the time those calls were made by Burnett, according to the flight data recorder, Flight 93 was flying at between 34,000 and 40,000 feet.
That high?
Yeah. So explain.
I thought it was getting close to the field and they made the calls when it was a low altitude.
No. That's where, if you take, the pilots for 9/11 Truth have done this and shown that at the point those calls were, made, if you take the time they were made against the flight data recorder, that's the kind of heights that this plane was flying at. So it's impossible for him to make a call. Another guy, Todd Beamer, the man of Let's Roll, the whole Let's Roll story, which, as I show in the book, almost certainly wasn't said.
What's the Let's Roll story?
When on Flight 93, the official story is that the passengers decided that some of the passengers said they were going to fight the hijackers for control of the plane. And this guy, Todd Beamer, what's claimed to be Todd Beamer, was on the phone to a Verizon airphone supervisor called Lisa Jefferson for a very long time. And she said it was absolutely amazing because that day, airphone calls were going down every few seconds or every few minutes. And yet his stayed on. And not only that, after the plane supposed to have crashed, the line remained open to Lisa Jefferson, she says this herself, for some considerable time after the plane was supposed to have crashed, because she said when the line's broken, you get a very clear tone that says the line's broken. Never broke. And the airphones get their power from the aircraft, which they wouldn't have done if the plane had crashed. But anyway, the cell phone of Todd Beamer made 19 calls after Flight 93 crashed, or we're told it did.